differences between the different areas of the fjord system. And I also took part in a study with a satellite tagging study of ring seals that were tagged inside the fjord system. And I'll get into that later. And with my postdoc project, well, with my PhD project, I got answers to the top of the food chain, fish and seals and local knowledge. But with my postdoc project, I wanted to get some answers about the plankton community structure within the fjord system, which is the bottom of the food chain. So the first study that I did during my PhD was the local ecological knowledge about the fjord system, which I also got published. I visited 3 settlements and interviewed fishers and hunters that mainly use the fjord system for fishing and hunting. And I asked around if there's anyone living in a small settlement here that you still go to the fjord system to fish or hunt, but I didn't hear anyone that does. So I only included these 3 settlements. It was mainly subsistence fishers and some few that only hunt seals within the fjord system. And they mainly use the fjord system when there is sea ice and snow on land that they can travel on. And then we have an exception where some fishermen from Ingemann travel through land and sail in the southern branch during the summer to fish for Axel. The main species that are caught within the fjord is the Greenland halibut and the ring seal. And both of these species are known for being larger inside the fjord system compared to the ones that they can catch outside of the fjord system. So we have some special conditions within the fjord that are favorable for the local fishers and hunters. So this is the typical ice conditions during the winter. Some area of the main fjord is usually open water, depending on the if it's large icebergs that are blocking the entrance, or if it's small icebergs that leave the fjord and present open areas. And this has an influence on where different species of seals are caught. Because we have harp seals that are caught in open water. This blue area is usually an open water area where they are caught from the sea, while the ring seals are usually caught in areas covered by sea ice. And then the fishers usually go to the main fjord because they know that the Greenland halibut are larger in the main fjord. So that's a long route. For example, those that live in Sascha, they take this long route to fish in the main fjord. But some reported also trying to fish in this orange area, but that the halibuts are smaller compared to the ones that they can catch in the main fjord. But then in the past 10 years, new conditions have started to change, or the conditions have started to change, where the main fjord clears of ice, where both icebergs and sea ice is cleared out of the fjord system. And that's completely new. In the past, this didn't happen. And that's because the large iceberg usually block the entrance and keep the ice conditions stable within the fjord. But now we have smaller icebergs and thinner sea ice that's more unstable. So, yeah. So this is unusual, and for the local fishers, this means that they have changed their fishing strategies. Instead of going in with dog sleds through land and sea ice, they sail in to the fjord system and fish in the blue area, depending on where the extent of this open water is. Higher frequency in the darker area and less frequent in the lighter area. And that's new. So some of the fishers reported not having sledge dogs, because they sail in instead of going in through land and sea ice. And then I combined that local knowledge with an environmental DNA study. I collected water samples that I analyzed for DNA to look for which species that are found within the fjord system, and that can be explained with the local knowledge. So the first aim was to collect samples in 2 locations, in the southern branch and in the northern branch. Then, while I was in Ilulissat in December 2019, an ice clearing event occurred, and we were able to sail in all the way to this area where the sea ice was. And I took the opportunity to collect samples in that area as well and compare that to the entrance to the fjord system, because the local fishers reported that the further you go, the less species they catch as bycatch. And that's simply because the halibuts are bigger and prey on other species. I wanted to see if that was possible to detect in the DNA analysis. So this is a lot, but it represents one sample is one column, and if that species is detected, it will be dark green, and if it's not detected, it will be light green. So you can see that it's only few species that are found in all samples, while the rest is found in some of the samples. So, for example, the most striking difference I could see was the samples I collected in the southern branch during the summer in July 2019. We saw a much higher count of different species compared to the rest of the samples. And we think that it's something to do with the inflow of water masses from outside of the fjord system that reaches the southern branch earlier than the northern branch. And also we have spawning ground in the southern branch for some fish. And we have Arctic char that is fished in the southern branch. So it's a combination of different things. And then I mentioned before that the local fishers say that the further you go, the less species you see. It was also detectable in our DNA samples where I saw fewer species in my samples. So some of the results were explainable with the local knowledge. And then I also took part in a tagging study of ring seals that have been ongoing since 2012 until 2020, where my co-worker, Axel, has been tagging ring seals with the satellite transmitter. The transmitter is glued to the fur of the seal. So when the seal sheds its fur during the spring, they usually lose their fur and grow a new layer during the spring. So the satellite transmitter falls off together with the fur, so it doesn't really harm the ring seals. And the ones that have been recaptured by local hunters have almost the same body conditions compared to seals that are not tagged. We don't think that it has a huge negative impact on the ring seals. But the tagging study actually shows how far the glacier have retreated. The map shows us old version where the glacier was situated here. And the tagging actually took place in this area that is now ice-free. So the glacier has retreated to this area, and the same with the glacier in the main fjord. Now it's actually situated around here. So it's a large retreat from the old maps. So with the tagging study, I looked at the diving behavior of the ring seals, and we could actually see that both the adolescent and adult ring seals start to dive deeper during the winter. And for some reason, they dive shallower during January. And we think it's something to do with the behavior of their prey. We know, for example, that Wolberg and capelin, they overwinter at greater depth. So that forces the ring seals to dive deeper. And then we could also see that with their age, the older the seal gets, the deeper they can dive. The surface of the ocean and the depth. So the youngest seals dive shallower, and the oldest seals can dive deeper. And we actually have a dive recorded. It was an adult male that go all the way down to 757 meters. So and that's something to do with their oxygen capacity in the body. The bigger they are, they have a bigger oxygen reserve in their body. They use their muscles and spleen as oxygen reserves. So the older seals dive deeper compared to the younger seals. And then we were lucky that 2 of these ring seals that we tagged were recaptured by local fishers, where the satellite transmitter was still attached to the ring seals. And well, the data that we get from the satellite are compressed and not as detailed. And we were able to extract all the data from the transmitter, and it was so detailed that it showed a pattern that wasn't visible in the satellite data. So the transmitter had recorded the depth every 4 seconds. So for example, we have 1 24-hour for the juvenile male, where each line represents a dive. It's quite a lot. And then I looked at the several days. I didn't really see any pattern for the juvenile male. And then if you go back to how 1 24 hours looked like and compare it to the adult female that was also captured, it's completely different. We have repeating dives to certain depths during the middle of the day. And that's a pattern that we can see on several days. So it looks like the adult female had learned to dive to certain depths during the middle of the day that the juvenile male didn't have. And then I put all the days for 1 month together on top of each other, removed the fast vertical movement, and kept the points where the seal paused. And it showed that it go down to 40, 50 meters depth during the middle of the day, and it corresponds well with the amount of daylight we have down here. And I didn't include it, but then we have October, November, and December that showed that the amount of daylight decreased, and it also had an effect on the diving behavior. So yeah, it's something to do with the amount of daylight, and it's maybe the behavior of their prey that is shown in these. So for the juvenile, I didn't really see any pattern. It's not as clear as the adult female. I think it's to do with the seal learning how their prey behaves. But I did some counts of their active dives where we have the juvenile male in blue and adult female in red. And they show something similar. They are more active during the day and rest more during the night. So they behave just like us humans. We are more active during the day and rest during the night. But they also have some sort of diurnal behavior like us. And I'm currently waiting for that to be published. But it only shows that when you're publishing your research, it takes several months for it to be published. So hopefully it will be published within the next few months. And then with my postdoc project, I wanted to dive into the plankton community that I didn't get during my PhD. But then we have an obstacle. I can't sample for larger sea plankton because that requires that we sail with a large ship that is able to pull a large net that can capture larger zooplankton. But then I thought, what if we have a biological sampling tool? Because we have Arctic char that is fished in the southern hemisphere during the summer in these blue areas. And I thought, what if we use the fish as a sampling tool and look at what they ate? So this month, I was actually out fishing with my local partner. He was fishing for Arctic char, and he was there with his wife and cousin. He's a subsistence fisher that salts, smokes, and dries Arctic char to sell for a living. And then I looked at the stomachs from these that he caught. And we actually got quite a lot of plankton. We have fish larvae, different kind of fish larvae. We have long, thin fish larvae and smaller ones that are more fat. And then we have krill mysids that resembles krill, but they are different species. And then we also have sand lance, sand eel. So I think this was a success that it showed we can use the Arctic char as a sampling tool for larger Schiøtt plants. And I was also collecting phytoplankton and smaller zooplankton with a mechanical haul. And I'm going again tomorrow and we'll sample and hopefully sample on Saturday. But yeah, this is only to show that what kind of samples I got. So we got some tiny zooplankton, fish larvae, and then we have these copperbots. And yeah, I'll get the results later this year and hopefully publish it next year. Yeah.
Thank you. This was fascinating. You said at some point that with regards to the seals and the dive, you said it had something to do with sunlight. Do you consider any other possibility? What made you go with that?
Yeah, I didn't do it, but that pattern that we saw with the seal diving to certain depth, we could actually see it with an acoustic control survey on the east coast of Finland. The different level seal that showed a similar pattern. It dived down to a certain depth where we could see that the cabling were actually doing the middle. Yeah. So the east coast data from East Greenland, we could combine it with a control survey showing that it's cabling. Highly likely was targeting during these times. And Iluli said, we think that these steps are where cabling or polar cup are.
Yeah, that's really good. Did you look at the field as well?
No, because we only had three captured green seals. So still had there was 2 adult female. Yeah, no problem. Where we have different fishermen. What? Fair, yeah, attending a fair where they can buy equipment or get in contact with some companies, and I was presenting during that, and they were actually curious to hear what I've been studying. And I've done some different outreach activities, both in the radio and television conference. No, I don't think they were expecting the green seals to be like that, but they can sense the migration of Greenland halibut. And I think it's because they are so highly dependent on their fishing activities that they can sense where they are going and the different changes that are occurring.
You mentioned that the local knowledge of Schiøtt was very consistent with something that you've done. Is there anything that the fishermen have said that consistent with what you found, or any open questions?
Yeah, I don't think I included that, but for example, I was surprised to see a peak in the amount of DNA from Greenland cod in the samples that I collected in the southern branch. And this happened during the spring, and we know that Greenland cod spawn during spring, and I think it's because they are spawning in the southern branch. And the fjord system is not accessible during March, April. So that's something the fishers also didn't know. And we think that they spawn in summer.
You mentioned the ice regime had changed last years. And all the older data that you can compare to see if there has been a change of the local ecology as well as the ice regime changed.
The fjord system is actually understudied because of the ice conditions. So we have nothing to compare that to, but the ice clearing events is something that all old fishermen have never seen in the old days. Yeah, and I think there were a lot of fishermen that also had noticed that the height of the icebergs smaller, and a certain type of icebergs that the locals call many, which is a large iceberg with several big peaks, they have become less frequent. And yeah, and that has an impact on the ice conditions because the large icebergs present stable conditions. Ice is forced to stay where it is, but now the sea ice is so thin and the icebergs so small that they have a higher chance of clearing out.
I was often lost studying this. Will this project of yours carry on so that we be comparing for later how this will develop further on?
Yeah. Yeah.
Good.
What might be some other benefits of using Arctic char rather than a large vessel with a net to sample the zooplankton?
Yeah, I think it's more cost efficient. It's expensive to use a research vessel or a large fishing vessel to collect large zooplankton. And I think this is a cheaper alternative. And the stomach content were relatively fresh. I was surprised at how little digested they were, all of them. But I think it depends on the frequency where the fisher empties his nets. The one that I was out with, he checked his nets 3 times during a day. So I think it's frequently enough to get fresh stomach content.
So the local knowledge has helped you in this research get to the scientific knowledge. Has your results, what you found out, changed the habits of the local fishermen?
I don't know yet, but the Arctic char results will be published together with the local fisher. I will have them as a local report co-author in my paper. So that's also something that I thought of while I was out doing field work, and I heard about their knowledge, and I wanted to include their knowledge in the publication of the results. So
It'd be interesting to see if they change their habit based on these results.
yeah, I haven't heard of any yet.
What is the general atmosphere and relationship to local fishermen? Here, and is there a lot of collaboration? Or like single fishermen that Wolberg itself?
I think it's difficult. It's both negative and positive because we have a lot of fishers complaining about the biological advice the institute gives, and a lot of the advice you give get negative comments about. It's not really in line with the local knowledge. But I think with my project, it's been positive. Maybe it's easier because I'm Greenlander and I speak Greenlandic. But I think in the beginning of my PhD project, it felt more difficult. But now it feels easier and people know me and I go back and forth and they know what I'm doing. I think the problem is that foreign researchers usually come in, collect their samples or do their measurements and then leave without returning anything back to the local community. So some of the fishers report that they are not really trusting the scientists because they don't really receive anything in return. So I think you have to invest in that connection and keep the contact and show your results to the local community to build a trust between you two. Yeah.
I'm just curious about what you have done. What was some of the advice that they were given that they felt to really make sense to them? And I guess second question is also what do kind of like local hunters, what do they want? How would they want to be more involved?
I think it's more the dialogue that is missing on different things. They feel like it's a one-way communication where the scientists are communicating their advice or results and then not getting any feedback or not including the feedback in their advice. And for example, with my interview survey, I found out that most of the fishers reported that the Greenland halibut is stable within the fjord system because they are fishing in the fjord during a limited time. It's only accessible during winter and spring, and then it's closed off during the summer and fall, except for the Arctic char fishing in the southern French. While the fishing activities in Disco Bay happens continuously year-round, and they have decreasing halibut sizes. And the fishers can also observe that. They can see that the biological advice in Disco Bay is more connected to their own knowledge because they also observe smaller Greenland halibut. Yeah, but I think that depends on where you are in Greenland. Yeah, some places are more remote and they are highly dependent on their fishing and hunting activities. And there they have maybe a more negative connection or, yeah, with the research community.
I want to ask, is there any selectivity problems on Arctic char sampling? Because the fish may have a preference on certain kinds of sampling.
Yeah. It was actually surprising how grouped the different preys were. For example, I saw most of the time that the stomach contents were grouped in species. Like one stomach had only pearl, and then another stomach had only littles. So it seems like that they target groups of prey. And I think the different prey species are species, as we call it, group. It seems like it's they swim and then find a group of prey that is consisted of in almost one species. Yeah.
Did you also check inside the stomachs of these little ones?
No. Yeah, I think it would require microscopes, and yeah, I didn't have that in the field. But it's interesting. maybe I'll do that in the future. Yeah, it's because the 3 or 4 species that are caught within the fjord system is the ring seal, harp seal, Greenland halibut, and Arctic char. So I know that I have better chances of getting samples if I choose the Arctic char. Yeah, basically 4 species that are caught in the fjord, and then other species are caught as bycatch.
Same with halibut.
Halibut is more difficult because it's fish with long line, and then they are on the hook for a while, and the stomachs I've looked at were mostly empty. I also looked at Greenland halibut stomachs, but I think yeah, most of them were empty. But then they also ate different species compared to ring seals and harp seals. Ring seals and harp seals are more similar in the sort of prey, and then Greenland halibut, they also predate on their own prey species. Larger halibut also predate on smaller halibut, but it's mainly fish and shrimp that the Greenland halibut prey on. So it's not these large zooplankton. So to get zooplankton, I think the Arctic char is a better choice.
Really interesting presentation. Next, we have Lorenz Meire, also from the Greenland Institute of Natural Resources. We'll just find your slides. Yes, and he'll be talking to us a little bit about the glaciers and the research he's been doing. Thank you. Yes, you can use that.
Good morning, everybody. So my name is Lorenz. I'm from Belgium originally, but I moved to Greenland 15 years ago and fell in love with the country and stayed ever since. So I've been here a while as well. And I'm also based at the Institute, the Greenland Institute of Natural Resources, and I'm in the climate department. So like the climate department studies like also specifically the ocean, like, and I will try to show a bit in my presentation the different kind of work we do around Greenland. So in first instance, I will speak about the Nasabstemia glacier. It's the glacier here in the fjord, and here you see a picture of it. And actually from the color of the rock, you can actually see that this glacier has been retreating quite a lot. And unfortunately, that's the case for many glaciers around Greenland. But we look at the glaciers and the ice sheet from the ocean side. And in general, we do a lot of work on the oceans around Greenland. And well, Sascha already mentioned a lot, but why do we care so much about the ocean? Like, I mean, for many people, most people in Greenland, like the ocean is super important in terms of like sustenance. Like the fishery is 90% of the GDP of Greenland. So understanding what happens in the ocean is really important. And well, you have been sailing in it, so you have an idea, but like we have a lot of ocean around Greenland. We actually have like one of the largest economic zones in the world, similar in size, I think, to Norway. So we have a lot of ocean, but we're very few scientists actually in Greenland studying the ocean. I think we are 30 scientists like looking at the ocean around Greenland, like including fishery, like plankton, mammals. So we are very few, and we have a large ocean, so there's a lot of work for us. And all our, like most of the people depend on the oceans for sailing, for hunting, fishing. So like, I think we all agree that understanding these oceans and our fjords is really important for Greenland. And so that's something we do at the Institute. Like we work like in local fjords, as Sascha explained, but we also have larger vessels going around. So we have like 2 vessels, like Tanna, it's our, I don't know which screen I have to point at. But we have a smaller vessel in the top, which does a lot of inshore work. And that works quite nice to go around in West Greenland, the different fjords. Then we just got 2 years ago or 3 years ago, a large offshore vessel as well. which does the fishery studies offshore. And then we also try to work with local people to like on skidoo and like small boats sail inside the fjords and do work. Try to understand ocean currents, take samples for plankton. We do this in different areas around Greenland, like both on the shelf, but also inside the fjords. And so one of our main goals, like in the climate center, is to really understand our fjord systems, because there's so much going on in the fjords and they play an important role. And there's like two main questions we are really interested in. We have on one hand the large open ocean where we have like a lot of things are going on, and we also know that the ocean temperatures are changing. And the question is, in which way does this changing ocean impact the ice sheet? Because we all know the ice sheet is melting quite fast, and like the ocean contributes very heavily to this melting of the ice sheet. And on the other hand, we also see more and more that there's more meltwater coming from the ocean into the fjords. And this impacts the fjords very much as well. Like you have icebergs coming into the fjords, you have like freshwater coming in, and sediments coming with it. So this has a very large impact on the whole fjord ecosystem. And so this is two main questions we try to understand through our research. First, I will speak a bit about like in which way do we study the melt of the ice sheet. And like this is our own backyard. I mean, we're now in Nuuk. It's in the mouth of the fjord, and we have Nuuk. It's like the whole fjord system here. It's the second largest fjord system in the world. So it's a very large fjord system. It's around 180 kilometers, like from Nuuk to the inner part of the fjord. And we have three large tidewater glaciers inside the fjord system, where like we have ice calving, and like in total we have also three other glaciers. We have a lot of glaciers in the inner part of the fjord. And every month we go out sailing. We have a small little boat, and we go out with our boat and take CDD measurements, as I learned you guys also have been doing. So we have CDD, and we take like temperature and salinity measurements at like the different stations, and try to sail in as far as possible. But we're often limited with how far we can go because of ice, sea ice, and icebergs. That's something we have been doing since 2009. So every month, winter and summer, we go out and sample. And that's the nice thing of being here. Like we can just get out. And like in recent year, a lot have been happening for, as I showed in the start, this glacier, Nasabsemia. It's the first tidewater glacier one sees when you go into the fjord. And that one has been retreating quite strongly in recent years. Oops. And this is how it looks when you get close to the glacier. So we sailed with the boat and then had a drone flying in the ice melange. So it's quite packed. So when people sometimes ask, like, why don't you take a sample like 5 kilometers from the glacier? Well, that's the reason why it's a bit difficult to sail in there. And it's actually something which has been occurring more and more, that there's more ice and coming down the glacier. So it just gets impossible for us to take samples closer by boat. And yeah, it's something we struggle with. But in the background, you can see like the glacier, and you can actually also see like where the glacier used to be and where it is now. So it's been retreating quite heavily. Yeah, this is picture itself. So this glacier has been stable since the Little Ice Age until 2000. So it was very like stable for 500 years. Like nothing happened to it. It was stuck in the central part of like out here. But then suddenly, since 2005, it started moving as many glaciers in Greenland started retreating. And then, like, we've been looking at this retreat and see, like, we can clearly see it goes in different steps. Like, it was, as you can see in this graph in the top, it looks the distance to the fjord mouth, and then it shows the speed in the bottom. And, like, until 2005, it was quite stable until suddenly like things start to happen, and we can clearly see it goes in different steps where it it starts retreating, something happens, and then it stabilizes for a while, then it starts retreating again and stabilizes. And in the recent work we did, we see there's clear 3 periods where this retreat occurred. And yeah, that's like, this just shows a typical summer picture of this is our little boat you can see in the picture in the bottom, where we go and try to do this measurements. So we take CDDs, and actually these CDDs we have been doing since 2009. They explain or 2008, they explain quite a bit. Like we can see that these retreat periods, they match very nicely with like warmer ocean water close to the glacier. So every time the glacier retreated, like we had like warmer fjord waters in the fjord as well. And during that time, like the glacier like continued retreating like quite actively. And then that's why we understand that, like, well, we knew this, or it's been speculated for whole Greenland, but it's just confirmed that like the ocean heat and coming into the fjords plays a really important role in the retreat of the ice sheet. And so therefore it's really important to keep an eye on what's happening with the ocean. And the retreat is very much an interplay, of course, between the ocean and the atmosphere. And often you need a trigger to start the retreat. Like you need like warm weather where the glacier starts to melt. And when the glacier starts being active, like warm ocean water like helps to like melt it very fast. Like because the heat goes to the glacier, melts the icebergs, melts the terminus, and then it's kind of like a champagne bottle. Like suddenly the cork is gone, and it just all comes out, and it starts melting very fast. And that's something we have seen like occur in recent years, and it's actually accelerating. Like maybe you know this as well. Like there's quite a lot of ice into the fjord, and it's quite normal to have ice inside this fjord, but it comes all the way in this amount to nuke abnormal, and we kind of fear that this will happen more and more, because the glacier just speeds up like very actively. And before there was the atmosphere, the sun was warm enough to melt the ice inside the fjord, but now there's just so much ice that it cannot melt the icebergs coming out anymore. So this is something we fear is happening here into the fjord. And then it's a question like, what will continue in the future? Like, will this glacier stabilize, or like what's gonna happen? And a lot of this depends as well on both like the ocean conditions, but also the bathymetry. And for this glacier specifically, we know that like now it's been creeping up still, it's more shallow here. And then suddenly it goes like, there's a very big trough, a little bit as it in Ilulissat. There's a 400 to 600 meter deep trough, like after where the glacier is sitting now. So we kind of think this glacier will be stable for a while on the sill it's on now. But like once it starts retreating, there's a risk things will go really fast, because suddenly you have a much larger area of the terminus where warm water can like melt this glacier. So like we're quite afraid of what will happen when this glacier like starts retreating past this sill. So that's why we keep going out every month and keep monitoring like at least what happens from the ocean. And also we have some glaciologists taking pictures of the glacier with time-lapse cameras and try to understand like what drives this retreat. And unfortunately, we cannot stop it. Like we cannot do anything about it, but at least we can like warn people that this is happening. And I already spoke about like, yeah, so the ocean is changing. We see like periods where warm water is coming in, and that's like something which for us in Greenland as scientists and for the Institute is really important to study. So since actually 1950, the Institute has been taking measurements around Greenland on some transects to understand like where is like what's happening, like what's happening with ocean temperatures, ocean salinity. And that's also why like when people like from outside Greenland collect data, we're very interested in getting this data, because we kind of want to create a database of all the measurements around Greenland. Unfortunately, this is often not happening, and that's like we see people coming from all over in the world and taking samples, but often the data is not shared with Greenland. And we hope we can change this because it's very important for us in Greenland to know what's happening to our own ocean. One way, but it's a lot of work to go out sailing. So one way we actually try to like get new data is by like technology, because we know it's very tricky to get out on a boat and sail like to different places in Greenland. Greenland is so huge. So one way we try to do this is using Argo floats. So what we do is like what happens all over in the world is like Argo floats are put out in the ocean and they float around and they take profiles of temperature and salinity. And there's around 3,000-4,000 Argo floats in the open ocean, and you can see on the figure just some like measurements around Greenland. But like this is all in the open ocean, far like from the coast, and we know that so much happens from the shelf break, like from like the open ocean towards the shelves of Greenland, towards the fjords. So it's very important to not only understand what happens like far away from Greenland, but also close to Greenland. So what we started doing together with some colleagues at NASA, so we started parking this floats on the shelf and inside the fjords, and like park them on the bottom where they are not officially parked, but like they go down, they sink, and they go like they're sit on the bottom. And then they go up and down, and even in the winter when there is sea ice, they keep going up and down. Then they don't send the data, but in the summer they go up all the way to the surface and they can send the data. In that way, we can like have an idea about what's going on, like in the coasts around Greenland, like real time. So this is a really nice tool for us. And so yeah, then we get really nice data about. Like in the start, it didn't really work out so well, so we lost them after a few profiles. But it's working better and better. Now we get kind of continuous data from several places in Greenland. So what we also hope is to do in the future is to kind of create a measuring network in that way that we know we have like very important glaciers who are very important for the mass loss of the ice sheet. If we could park these Argo floats or other instruments close to all these glaciers, it gives, for us at least, an idea about what's happening in all these glaciers around Greenland. And in that way, we can like predict better or understand better what drives the melt of the ice sheet. So this is the first part of our work where, like, which I mentioned, that we want to understand what's going on, like with like warm ocean water melting the ice sheet. But a lot of our work is also linked on like what is now happening when all these glaciers melt, because we know the glaciers are melting faster and faster, and we have more and more icebergs, more and more meltwater coming into the fjord. And when we look at glaciers throughout our research in different places in Greenland and speaking with people, we've been observing that like there's very strong difference between different fjords. You have fjords who have land terminating glaciers, where you have a glacier ending on land and where you have a river flowing into the ocean, or you have the marine terminating glaciers where you have like terminus who goes all the way into the fjord, and then it calls ice, and like it's a different way of fjord. And we see that there's very big differences, and like going around Greenland, you see that people like go fish in some areas and don't go in some other areas, and speak about dead fjords and active fjords. And like the fjords with land terminating glaciers are often like called dead fjords because there's not so much like life there. There's like not so much activity there. There's little fishing going on, and a lot of it can be explained by like the physics, because what happens is when these glaciers melt in the summer, you have a lot of meltwater going in the fjords, which then strongly stratifies the water. You have a layer on top of fresh water, so the water is very stratified. Also, maybe you have seen, but like these meltwater plumes, they're very turbid. There's a lot of like silt and sediments coming with, so the light conditions in these fjords are also often very bad. So the sunlight doesn't penetrate, and consequently, like nutrients are like available deeper in the fjords, but they don't like reach the surface because there's no mixing, and also there's no light deeper, so there's very little productivity in this area. So there we see that actually there's very little like phytoplankton and zooplankton in these fjord systems. And that's something we learn by speaking with different people, that this process is occurring. And when like going around to different fjords in Greenland, it's actually confirmed. So we just to show some chlorophyll. It's not 100% tells something about productivity, but it gives an idea. And we see that actually in all these fjords with like land terminating glaciers we see almost no chlorophyll. We see actually also very low like zooplankton. So there's a big difference between these fjords. But then we have the other fjords, also the one Sascha spoke about, the one with the marine terminating glaciers like Ilulissat, but also here in the fjord. And these are very active fjords because different to the one with the land terminating glaciers. We have also some surface melt, but a lot of the meltwater actually penetrates inside the ice sheets and comes out like at the bottom of the ice sheet as like freshwater deep. But it's freshwater coming out in the fjord deep, and it's like due to buoyancy, it's lighter than seawater. You can get a jet of like water rising next to these glaciers. And so you get very like vigorous mixing and upwelling next to these glaciers. You also have icebergs calving, so it's a very active fjord system. Well, this just shows how like some of this meltwater goes into the ice sheet through like moulins and crevasses, and then when it's close to the glacier, it comes out. And this process is really important because I mentioned like the fjords are deep. They're often nutrient-rich water deep, and so like due to this process, like nutrient-rich water is brought to the surface all the time. So we see like that, like deep like water is brought up to the icebergs to this glacier activity, and this like gives a lot of nutrients for the phytoplankton. Where there's still some light problems sometimes because there's also some turbid meltwater, but due to the fact that nutrients are all the way in the surface, there is very high productivity. And that's something we actually see all over in Greenland. That's like all over in Greenland, these fjords have very high productivity. We see very large blooms in the summer periods of phytoplankton. And consequently, like there's really high productivity in these fjords. And also, like the food web is completely different if you go to different places. Like in this land terminating glacier, you have like some zooplankton, but it's like small zooplankton, which is like not like lipid rich, which is good for fish, but it's not the best food source for many like larger animals. While in these marine terminating glacier fjords, we have a very different food web type where we have this large Kalaallit species, which are typical for the Arctic, which are very lipid rich. They're good for like smaller capelin and like Arctic cod to eat, which are then fed on by many other fish. So we see very different like way the food structures between these different fjord systems. So our like by speaking with people, we learned that like there's big differences between different fjords, and our work has shown that this indeed is the case, that productivity is very different. And like we know that these marine terminating glaciers are one of the reasons why these fjords are so productive. And that's something which has been like important for Greenland for many years, because that's the region people go fishing there. Like the largest halibut fishery is occurring like next to these glaciers, and it's not always the most safe fishing conditions. So like, why would they go there if it's like, so they really like want to go there because it's the productive hotspots. And that's also where if you look at the map, all the settlements or the big cities in Greenland, they're often very much located close to like large like glaciers, because that's where the productive fishing grounds always have been. So for people, they settled where it was like good to hunt and fish. But of course, let's put a lot of things into perspective, because I first showed that like glaciers are melting and the melting is going faster and faster. This is like Jacobshavn Ilulissat glacier, and like we just have seen that like this glacier is retreating faster and faster. It's speeding up the retreat, and so like with like more and more like melt going on, like what will happen to the ecosystems next to it as well. Like now we have very rich like ecosystems with whales and like a lot of fishery occurring, but like in the future maybe many of these glaciers might disappear, and so consequently a lot of these rich ecosystems we have might also disappear. So that's something we're looking at and like worried about, but it's a big question for Greenland, what happens with climate change. So yeah, that's my talk. Thank you. I don't know if there's any questions. Or... Yeah.
You mentioned briefly working with listening to local communities.
Yeah.
And there like how long have you been doing that? You know, saying interact over the years.
Yeah, what I do is like well, I live here as well, so I'm very interested in fishing and hunting myself. So, like, first of all, I think it's really nice to speak with people about what they do, and like, so wherever I go, and I just like try to speak with people about like where they go hunting and fishing, and what they see. And so a lot of my work has been like based actually with speaking with like people in the streets about like, okay, or like actually starting in Nuuk, because that's where I lived and did my PhD work. Like, why do we have two fjords here, like Nuuk and Kloa with the marine terminating glacier, and actually Amalik, where you have the land terminating glacier. Speaking with them, why don't you go fishing for halibut in some fjord, like not in Amalik, but in the other one? So, but I never included it actively. Like, it's more like as a background, and like I've been having a drive to understand what's going on. So I've been doing it all the time, but it's not. I haven't done it in the way Sascha has done it. But like I'm very interested in what's going on just around, and like when I sail with, like I often use our like medium-sized boat, like the captain as well. He knows, like he's been sailing around in Greenland, so I speak a lot with the crew. It's not always we have the time, unfortunately, to stop in all the settlements. Because we were also on a tight schedule. So it's, yeah, I as much as possible, I try to speak with people and understand what's going on. And
just a quick follow-up.
Yeah.
So is there anything that they have told you that has surprised you as for what you think in the winter? What is it kind of expected?
Yeah, I've learned a lot. Like, I think you learn a lot by speaking. Like, I think it's, yeah, there's many things. You know, surprise is a difficult, maybe not the wrong expression, but like I think you learn a lot by speaking with people. But I think we can explain better why some things are occurring. But yeah, I don't know if it surprised me. Like I think you need to have an open view from the start, and I don't know, just see what happens. So I don't know. I don't think it surprised me, but like I'm curious.
There are local observations kind of coherent with what you're seeing.
Yeah, for us it is, like for at least for the different glaciers and the productivity between fjords, it's definitely coherent. So. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Well, what we saw is that a lot of it has been like the start of the retreat is often related with a big event happening, like a period of very warm weather where like things start to change, and like there's a lot of melt going on which creates like upwelling, and then also warm water being dragged close to the glacier. So in that way, it's difficult to predict, because you need, like, it's often depending on atmospheric conditions, which are not easy to predict. Or another thing is also like we have these lakes on the ice sheet, and when they drain, there's suddenly a lot of meltwater coming down as well, which like creates instability close to the glacier. But it needs to be related with that there's also warm water when like there's a lot of melt coming, but there's cold water in the fjord. The retreat doesn't happen. So I think the predicting effect, like I think we need to, there's still so much we don't understand about these glaciers. Like there's been a lot of work done, and there's been a lot of modeling work done, but like from a perspective like me being in the field, I think there's still so much we don't understand about it, and there's so much we don't understand close to the terminus and inside the fjords, that I think it's very difficult at this point to do any prediction. I think many of the modeling, with all respect, I think there's so much wrong there still, and I think we need we need more observations very close to these glaciers, and especially in the winter and the spring and autumn periods. Like people come here, and like all scientists come like during summer, do a campaign and say, okay, this is what's happening. But like we can see that like the whole, especially in autumn, spring, and winter, a lot of stuff is happening, which is more important for glacier stability and like glacier retreat. So I think we need more winter and like more observations in this period, and that's also why I think it's very important that we have more like research going on in Greenland, like by Greenlanders instead of like people who come and like do something and then leave. So, yeah.
I have a question. Maybe I didn't hear you before. Very old, I guess. But I have a question related. You answered it partly now with more research being needed, and I agree with you. That is the obvious thing. But the climate changes now. We've been complaining about more ice breaking up. Is that going to be more treacherous? Like everybody knows about the discussions about resources in Greenland and development resources. I know when they were doing oil exploration here, they had a problem with drifting ice. Is this going to be a magnitude problem then, with more drifting ice and then creating those problems for any seafarer from snow fishing boats? How do you predict it?
I think in many areas it will get worse, yes, but there's also, I mean, at some point there's also many feedbacks, like if the atmosphere gets warmer, the icebergs melt faster as well, and the ocean warms up. So there's like a lot of feedbacks, and I think it's definitely also depending from area to area. Like here in the fjord, we think it will get worse, and I think in Disco Bay it will get worse. But where, like in many other areas where there's not so much ice yet anymore, like it will get better. So like it might, like they, for example, have a lot of problems in the South Greenland with drifting sea ice. Like if the sea ice in the Arctic like disappears faster and faster, there will be less problems in South Greenland with that. So I think it's very much like Greenland is so big, and the problem is quite complex in different regions with different drivers. So in some areas it will get better, but in some areas it definitely will get worse with the icebergs. So
what do you then predict on the Northwest Passage?
Oof. Well, that's out of my scope, but I think there will get better because there you mostly have sea ice, and like I think the biggest problem for Greenland will be icebergs. So because sea ice is, I mean, the trend in Greenland is as well that sea ice is disappearing quite fast, and it's more and more unstable. So I think like in that way it will be better to sail, but still it's not always the nicest water to sail. I think you experienced that. So, yeah.
I'm curious because the fjord or is it do we know whether there was a period in the past where there were a lot more icebergs like there are in Anglia, that there was a period when there was more of a floating shelf where a bigger iceberg or more of them?
Yeah, from like this winter in March we had like a lot of ice because suddenly there was like a really crazy event, and we had ice all the way to Nuuk icebergs. And speaking with many people, like including my father-in-law, he said he had never ever observed anything like that. That like there's so much ice inside the fjord icebergs. So I think this is quite unusual. Like I mean, this is going back 60 years, like that they have been living here. So they had not observed this, but like they said there was more sea ice. Like they used to be able to walk to Norlena, the other side of the fjord, like in many years ago, many years ago. So that used to be possible. But like icebergs, there's definitely more icebergs in the fjords. So.
Now we can have a little break. There's some pastries and some smoothie outside, so you can go stretch your legs, have a snack, and then we'll reconvene in about 15, right?
We'll be back in 10 minutes, which would be 10:35.
Yep. Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
I mean, very democratic.
Landslide. You know that. I think that in the future will give
Better
less
research.
biology as more and more the land.
Yeah.
Correlation, yeah. As you see from the e-script, ethos and publication that it's surging is faster for the follower. And I believe that also for most of the geodata.
Yeah.
So it's faster.
Yeah, so, I like also on a larger scale, like how I impact the ocean. And there was a big ice.
Oh, what a paragraph. Right.
Yeah, so of less biology.
Yeah.
Fishery.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm thankful. Yeah, I'd like to read more of this, but I believe I could just find publications on the next.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm Megan Brown. I'm starting at University of Oregon.
Okay.
With still there, but
Settling?
yeah.
Mhm.
So I'll be working on yeah. I was just curious, like, about, like, I know in Alaska there's been work with, like collecting snorkeling.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Someone's staying. Oh, you have a thing. That one is recorded.
Nah, and she did fine.
Or where'd you get the? Who's just?
Yeah.
So that's what we try to do.
Yeah.
I haven't fun.
what about is that this card?
No, there's one is starting with. And the other one is up.
Anything about it?
Yeah. Fine. Yeah.
What's the vibes there?
It's not one.
Is there anyone else than myself who really wants that?
No.
So
She's nice.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Yeah. And then one more, sorry. What kind of drug?
Yeah, go to the museum.
Watching them and flying them.
Doing it for them.
That's why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think for.
It would be nice like once. Yeah.
A lot of people there. Yeah. A lot of the
No, I'll be back. I know I'm not.
know each other. We're just. I did give out a little bit. I listened down on the tree there.
We only have 3 glaciologists.
Older than 60. Such a long term with their different part high school. Like before.
So that's like. Yeah, areas, because the mountains are really there. So. No, but it's rivers.
Oh, there's a guy.
Not even really. It's the kind of like. This is like all of these. Yes, like. Yes, we really do. This was on the book. That's great.
This is the day one in California, right? Yeah. Because that's where it's going.
So we have, so like. But also
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you again for coming back and paying some more attention. So next we're gonna have a presentation from Jeremiassen from the Inuit Circumpolar Council, and he'll be talking to us about his work with Indigenous knowledge here in Greenland. So thank you. And everyone, I asked about the microphone, unfortunately broken. So let's be quiet also. So let's be quiet and pay attention, okay? Thank you.
Thank you. I will try to be in this side for a moment, and then after a while I will switch over there, if you don't mind. So I'm representing Inuit Circumpolar Council, which is an organization of Inuit. This is our logo. It's a drum dance with the stick, and we call ourselves for Inuit. And I will talk about the Jeremiassen project. It's an area. This project started more than a year ago. It's about hunters and fishers. We asked for to interview or do workshops with hunters and fishers from different places in North Greenland. And Inuit, we as Inuit are spread in a huge area from very east part of or west part of Russia or east part to Gokja, and all the way to East Greenland. We spread many years ago because we follow the animals we were depend on. That will be reindeers or muskox and different kind of sea animals. That's how we were spread around the Arctic. And basically, if I say Nunaat, land, it will be same word in Chugotka. And if I say polar bear, Nanok, it will be as well same word all over the places. So basically, we can communicate with each other. But of course, we have different dialects. And Jeremiassen is an area. Jeremiassen is in between nowadays Nunavut, Axel, and Juhan. It's a huge area. So in that area, there is microwave animals. And it's never freezes to ice. It's always open. From that area, many animals migrate and live along the very north part of Greenland and west coast, also east part of Nunavut. And we call it in West Greenland, Jeremiassen, North Water, Polenia. Polenia is Russian word that means open water or ice-free. And Inuit in very north of Greenland, in fjord, also and inlet. And West Greenland, it's Jeremiassen. And Inuit in the area, we call it Aswa. That's mean basement, a lot of huge currents. So we have selected some specific settlement in very north part of Greenland. And these are the settlements we visited and do the workshops. Every workshop spent in 2 days like this. We collected hunters and fishermen like this in specific rooms. We just made a horseshoe like
circle so we can see face to each other when we are discussing. From around 9 o'clock in the morning to 5 o'clock or so in late afternoon for 2 days, we ask people what is important for your life as to be a hunter or a fisher. What's your opinion about your economy? What's your opinion about the climate change? How is your life? How can you describe your life, your situation with your family? And what else do you want to discuss? So those kind of questions we let them discuss. In the very beginning, we just discussed in 2 hours, just like brainstorming. What would you like to say right now? What's on your mind? Just talk. So we let them talk like 2 hours. Then after that, we specify some issues like, let's talk about polar bears only now. What is your experiences about polar bears or belugas, Greenland halibut, all kinds of animals? And what about your economy? Let's discuss your economy or productions. So many issues have been discussed. And also, when we experience that some of the hunters have very strong opinion or they have to say a word, then we kindly ask them, can I interview you? Like for an hour or so. So we did also interviews in specific areas where the hunters are fishers. This is Rasmus. He's 40 years old, living in Ugelvik. He's fisher. He studied carpenter, but he quit to be carpenter because he wanted to be fisher and living by fishing. So also we ask very young hunters, adult hunters, elders, retired hunters or fishers. So we can have very more broad information to learn. So we also ask, what is a hunter? What do you call yourself for a hunter? So it is very common you have a boat, open boat. It's small, sometimes we say small boat, sometimes it's a bigger boat. So it's open boat. Also hunters have some dogs. Some hunters have 8 dogs, some hunters have 15, others have 30. So they are depend on different kind of seals, belugas, polar bears, seabirds, and some of them also rollers. A typical fisher is also have an open boat. He mainly do fishing with long line. He can also have sled dog teams. Some others have moved to having a ski-doo also. They are very dependent on Greenland halibut. Each year, they get quotas from the government, a specific amount of halibut they can catch. These are hunters from Oklahoma, of fishers, 2 elders and most of the young. So what we learn is that a typical hunter or fisher is the main person who do supplies for his family. All his family, it depends on his catch or harvest. Wife, children, grandparents, uncle, aunt, even the small community is depend on that hunter or fish. Of course, they do have faced the climate change as the earlier presentation. The ice is moving back and affects the sea currencies and sea water temperature of animals. This is great hunter moving from Schiøtt and his wife and their friend. They having curry and rice, polar bear meat. I switch over there, sorry. And in Ghana, they have affected the everything, almost everything. The behavior of many animals also became very strange with hunting. And sometimes they used to claim a specific animal like the local now came in a very specific time of the year. But nowadays you can predict because everything has changed so much, it affects many animals, both on land and sea. And they also that they supposed to the hunter or fisher have been hunter all his life from very young age. He learned many things from his father or mother, grandparent, uncle, and he continues that he has learned those specific techniques or issues. But those specific techniques is also affected by the climate change and the very strange behavior of animals. Some of the way of eating has been affected badly. The younger generation do not learn that specific words or that specific technique because of so much change in the climate. Like the wind is from all the way from the north. There's no zero visibility with me. You can see the shape of the snow, so which direction you are going, and the wind almost is from the north. So even though there is zero visibility by both of the north, you know the dogs know which direction you are going. So that kind of techniques or knowledge experiences is so important for the hunter, but some of them is disappearing or the use of these are declining. And also that Inuits across the Arctic, like I showed the whole Arctic, we have the mentality of we, us. If I that's a specific animal, I would share it with my not only religion but also the whole community. And one day, if I go home with no cat at all, the other hunter will share with me as well. And the females, when they are doing sewing with the sealskins and all kind of clothes, the very experienced woman will share his knowledge with that specific young woman and learn how to do it. So this kind of we or us mentality was also changing. It became more me and I because of very big climate change. So also today the government imposes specific amount of halibut, Greenland halibut, specific amount of polar bears, walruses, the locusts now, even birds. So it affects their economy. Most of the hunters I did with workshop with have very much anger. There's so much anger with the government because they're saying that the government is trying to destroy our life. We are anymore with the government, some of them say. Not that with the gun or Europe. Mentality because they think they don't listen to the hunters. The policy or the government, even the specific members of parliament, are only thinking for themselves. Uncertain situation. And also that hunters, some younger generation, they could be hunting. There are so many expenses and they prefer to go to the South Greenland and get some education. And story at the local store or anything. And also that many hunters and fishers complain that they have been disturbed by foreign sailors or expedition groups. Wild animals are very sensitive for specific appearances of climates. They're also very sensitive for the noises and pollution and any human activities, like ships. They go around in that specific area where they supposed where hunters supposed to be hunt or fish. So they disturb with their sailing their area. So they are very eager to tell the authorities that before a ship arrives or even pass in that specific area, you have to inform the authorities. Do not stay in that specific queue. Do not enter this specific area because this is our land. You are very dependent on those and okay, and also they understand you have to do some scientific work, but they want to be more involved. They want to be asked. They want to simply do some knowledge about their results, not only in map or papers. They have to be some specific information in their own languages that we understand, so they can read it. Even at least some researchers or science will come to that specific sentiment and tell the local people we are doing this in a specific time, and we want to do collaboration to share your knowledge. We want to learn your life, about your life. So we want to be more transparent, more involvement. And because that we also have some knowledge, we have experiences, we have lived in that specific area all their life. And they know that the government have been put money to that specific research. And they want as well also to be shared in the radio, like TV or pamphlet. Any information will be very good for the local people. Maybe even that school students, teacher can maybe tell that there are some research. Or uncle will be involved. So that kind of simply transparent information in their language, Inuit language. This is very important. We know some words in scientific word can not simply be translated to that specific language. Even some researchers have specific words that other researchers or scientists have difficult to understand. But it has to be transparent. So information, simply information, a lot of information, they need a lot of people. And I would like to mention this workshop from Wuolab in very low part. They met we always use the maps. They always, wherever we are in Sydney map, when we show maps, this is wrong. This is not the place of that word. This is wrong. We always keep saying we don't call this area or island for that. We're always wrong. So they don't even trust the maps. But that's why it is so urgent that they have to be involved. However, I would like to tell you about this. These children, they do eat local traditional food, but not all younger generation. They prefer frozen pizza. I don't know, chicken, like you can put in the microwave. That's also affect their health. Knowing fruits is organic. There's no something additional vitamins also they grow fast. And some even elders said, why do we have so many young with ADHD, hyperactive? Why can't so many boys just stand still for 15 minutes? You have to be active. Some elders said, yeah, it's different. Never done the research of scientific, but that's questions of theory. Somehow I feel a feeling. Thank you very much. Yes.
Thank you very much. I'm curious about the fishing quota system. So how does that work? Is that by boat or by region? And is it informed in any way by Inuit knowledge or not?
No, it's the government policy. There's a Department of Fish and Hunting, and the minister with his employees decide all the cost of Greenland is put in in boxes. They have numbers, and this number can is along the specific TAC for each year, for each fall. So if we have catch all that TAC, that's it. But it depends of the government. Some government are very kindly to add more quotas. While earlier ministers had said quotas is up, there's no more. We have to wait till the next year. So it differs from policy, government, and the ministers' mental understanding of the situation.
And how is the TAC counted for? So is it by fisher or by community or by how?
It's fishing. Like earlier presentation, we depend on dairy fish, on fish industry. So we have the government have just a year ago made a new fishing policy. So we have the specific amount of the quotas. It's not only fish, but also the locusts, walruses, birds, and larvae. That the government decide how much that specific area have to catch, like polar bears.
You mentioned that Inuit people have very similar lifestyles, but they span 4 countries. So how have the policies across the countries impacted the way that they live?
Greenland and Nunavut, Arctic Nunavut, we have self-governing, while Alaska and Chukotka, Russia, they are very dependent on the US policy and Russian policy. So it depends where you are. Some areas we have very strong traditional lifestyle, while the others, like in Alaska, they have very impact, even their language they hardly speak their language. Also, we can see it in some areas here in Greenland, especially in. And the more isolated the community is, the stronger Inuit knowledge and lifestyle. So it depends where you are. That this is one of them to protect our environment, our lands, the cultures, our identity, values, dignity. So every 4th year we have assembly to discuss what have we achieved, what's next to do. Inuit from Chukotka, Alaska, Nunavut, Canada, and Finland to discuss what to do with our land. Now, I think he's first, then you.
Just another question about the quotas. I understand that they must be very important, but they are decided by the government who's disconnected from the hunters or fishers. And I wonder, how do you think the quotas should work? Should the system be changed somehow?
Yeah. We have plenty of halibut Greenland. We have plenty of polar bears. We have many walruses. Why some international organizations says polar bears population is in danger. So depends of who the minister is, which political organization he's representing, and how much he is listening to the international NGOs and other policies, United Nations policies. It can decide what kind of policy to rule. Why most of the hunters says that we don't need quotas at all, because the nature take care by itself. If some of specific population is growing so fast, the other animal will eat those specific species, so the population will decline. This is the understanding of fishers and hunters. While some politicians saying that the polar bears population is very in danger, so we have to limit how many we can kill for each year. Same for the walruses, belugas, narwhals, and specific of birds, seabirds. So this is two opinions that are fighting like or disagree very much. It's not only in Greenland, it's all over the place. Some politician says that it's not human activities that affect the climate change. But while other researchers are saying that we have plenty of proof that human activities affect the climate change. So this is kind of same situation for government policy and hunters, fishers. Okay, I would
Well, many of the things that we have in Greenland, and you may have heard some of it before. You are, of course, very much in the center of discussions now, both from a security point of view and a global context, because of your resources, and of course because of your culture. So, if you can control everything, how would you see Greenland develop in the next decade? I mean, what is the dream Greenland for you, and how would you get
Since I have worked with hunters and fishers, I will rely upon their knowledge. I have friends that not only elders, also younger hunters and fishers. We have very strong opinion that we have to make the decision by ourselves. We can always ask some outside coming authorities or because maybe they have some 10 years research or scientific research experience or background. We have been doing that since the start of colonization. We have to just simply collaborate with each other in that specific way. And also, Pontus is saying that we have also not only collaborate and cooperate with Ingemann, inside Greenland, we also have to collaborate with our fellow Inuit in Greenland, in Canada. We are facing the same situation, climate change, tourist activity, more ships, cruises, and sailors, same development wherever you are in. Yeah. So we have to collaborate. I agree with that. And also that we have to improve our education system, public school. Our students have to learn more. Science or research doesn't always have to be very high. It has to be simple words, simple knowledge. I have heard a scientific or PhD student say that I can't explain it in that way. Then Hans says, then he has to understand what he is working on. If he cannot explain it with a simple words, in a few words, then that person has to understand what he's working on. And he's right. So share knowledge, share it in your own language, be transparency, work together with the local people like we want to. Then, sorry, I explained your yes.
Very nice talking. Lots of perspectives. I was wondering, how can we, and maybe ICC also, increase this generational knowledge or this transfer of knowledge generations? How is that being supported, or how can it be strengthened?
If I take our project as an example, this project, our vision is to publish information or pamphlet or a book about what we have learned of the fishes and hunters. We are just finalizing the report. It is done in English. It is done in Greenlandic, Greenlandic, and we will share it. We will print it and share it with the government, the authorities inside Greenland, municipality, to the mayor, that specific mayor, and also outside Greenland, NGOs, inside even United Nations, whoever who want to read it, like students in junior high school, universities. So hopefully we will invite some specific hunters to the university and do presentation, because their knowledge is so important. Very strong knowledge and powerful, important knowledge. Yes, I think you first. Emil?
You were mentioning the hunting, the traditional knowledge, and that some of these traditional techniques that they use for hunting are becoming irrelevant because of climate change. If I understood you correctly.
Yes.
Yeah. So if we are to sort of preserve, so this transferal of knowledge, traditional knowledge from one generation to the next, because of these external events changing, it's becoming less relevant by definition. So perhaps in a continuation of Keren's question of how do we help preserve this traditional knowledge. So if some of it is becoming irrelevant, is there not a need for some kind of innovation on their side in order to adapt to these new changing environments?
Yes, I'm impressed that hunters do always adapt. They just don't give up. They find something to adapt the environment. And it's not only because of climate change they have to give up some of traditions and values. It's also the policy of the government, like Bilokas and Nawals. Some 2 decades or 3 decades ago, they hunt together. I told you that we have that mentality. We, us, all of us, not only you, not only me, but all of us, us. So they hunt all together in a boat. They hunt Bilokas in a specific fjord. There's one leader of the boat. They collect all the Bilokas in that specific fjord, and they maybe maybe they will shoot 5. Beluga is not so small. It's a lot of meat and very vitamin wealthy food, which is best food for me. So, and the leader will say, enough. We let the other belugas go out. We have killed 5. Then we will possess these animals, and each family will have specific amount of that meat and food for the rest of the year. But because of the government policy, you can't do that hunting anymore. And also, even though some of hunters doing now hunting from the kayak, you know, kayak, and he harpooned the Norway. But if that hunter have no more quotas, he can't do his practice because the quota is run out. So it's not only climate change, it's the also policy. But the hunters, some of the hunters in specific community, they broke the law. Even though they have no more cat to build nowadays, they kill, I think, 3, and the authorities have been give them to the police because they broke the law, and they say, I don't care. I'm just trying to survive. If I don't kill that now, I don't have any food for my family. I haven't any income. I have to pay my house, fuel, electricity, even cell phone. I have bills to pay, so I have to, even though the policy give me to the court, I don't care. I have to survive.
Just a quick follow-up, if I may. So you mentioned this earlier as well in your presentation, that sense of community and, for lack of a better word, this kind of solidarity, as you were talking about right now, and that is seems to be a core value in this culture. And now, because of this policy, do you fear that that is being challenged? That the sense of community and the sense of solidarity is a core value is being challenged by the policy, which doesn't allow them to continue hunting as they would have. Are you a bit fearful about that sense of community, solidarity, or not so much?
I'm so impressed that the hunters and fishers are so strong mentally. They are so, they never give up. They never simply give up. They have been by themselves in nature. There's no one. If you are paddling in kayak and something happens, accident in a very bad weather or any iceberg, then there's no one to help you. But yet they always survive. they find something to escape out of that situation. So this is also one of the reasons we have established ICC. We have to collaborate. We have to find something solution. We have to discuss. We have to exchange ideas, experiences with one another to find the best way to survive, to live in that very hard nature. Yes?
I think one last one.
Okay, yes. Sorry for long replies.
Thanks a lot for very good presentation of the local. I've been traveling a lot of course and seeing those cities. So when I see 100, probably thousands, of 1, 2 man, small fishing boats. And I believe that they also have a limited radius that they are fishing. So I also believe that will also be make them all the fishery more vulnerable when climate change also the quality and what to find the fish. Unlike other countries where the majority of the fishing is bigger boats.
Yes, like I mentioned, we interviewed some hunters, and one informant told me that at the time they have very small boats, not so powerful in team. But today, each boat can sail with 2 tons, big containers, and very powerful in team, like 300. So also because they have to sail farther away, they have to move more farther than before because the focus is more far than the earlier times, like 2 decades or 3 decades ago. Thank you.
A great presentation. So now we wanted to also, since this is a course that has been organized at the University of Bergen, and bring it back to also a bit more the Norwegian context. And so we have here with us Juhan Nikolaus for Wolberg. So Juhan Nikolaus is a Sami reindeer herder, and he'll be telling us a little bit more about how Indigenous knowledge is different in Sapmi, and yeah, we'll have a little bit of a on-stage discussion.
Yes, because I'm a student and we've had 3 lectures, and I love me a lecture, but I thought that having a dialogue would be a bit more interactive, and I noticed that there were a lot of questions. So after our dialogue, if you didn't get to ask a question, feel free to hit me up. I like to see myself as pretty friendly.
You are. So I guess maybe the first thing is, can you tell us a little bit about who Sami people are?
So Sami people are a collection of people, I would say. I'm a reindeer herder, so that's like one aspect of our culture, but we also have sea Samis that fish. But due to very aggressive colonial policies from the Norwegian government, I would be more promoted, or I would assume you would know more about reindeer herding Sami than sea Sami.
And where is the traditional homeland of Sami people?
So in Norway, we are from the very east to Kirkenes down to like Røros. That's on the map in Norway, and then on the Swedish side, I'm a bit unsure, but we are a international people since we have traditional lands in Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Russia.
Great. Can you tell us a little bit more about what is reindeer herding?
So reindeer herding, and it's a practice where, have you heard about sheep farmers? Pig farming, cows, Scottish people, So what we would do, or what we are doing, is that we own collectively, but also individually, a herd of reindeers, and then we actively work with that herd. It is a traditional livelihood. It is protected by, what is it called?
Juhan Declaration of Rights.
Yeah, but also like the foundational laws of
The Constitution.
Constitution. Thank you. English is not my native language, and I'm a bit jet lagged. 3 hours. Oh my god. Anyways, where we actively work with the animals, and this can look differently from different areas because I'm not just a reindeer herder, but also a reindeer nerder. I love to talk about reindeers. And as you can see there, I'm also a biology student. And I've had many discussions with my professors where I'm saying that we have more than one type of reindeer. Oh, but we only have mountain or tundra reindeer in Norway. And I'm like, well, yeah, but there's nuances to everything. Yeah, but this can be, we migrate with the reindeers. Sami people are a semi-nomadic people, just like Inuits are, or were, sorry, or still are. Anyways, where we can tame reindeer so they can pull on our sleds or carry our lavus. Yes.
What is a lavu?
A lavu is, have you heard about Native American teepees? Thank you. It's very similar, just a different way we structure it, but it's sort of, and we either have pelts or cloth. More nowadays, it's cloth. Canvas is the right word. Thank you.
You say that you often migrate with the reindeer. Have we seen any effects of climate change in those traditions?
So, yes, there is. And I can tell from my point of view, I've not been an active reindeer herder my entire life. I recently started this journey maybe 5 years ago. But during my 5-year tenure, I've noticed that we have one of our migrational routes more or less cut off because of we are dependent on ice forming and the late ices that don't melt very early to be able to migrate from our summer pastures to our winter pastures. And now, the last 3 years, we have not been able to do that. But also with increasing weathers, that also changes the behavior of reindeers. Many of you probably enjoy a week in Spain or Mallorca or like any warm country where we go to relax. But for reindeers, it's very stressful. They are an Arctic species. They have thick fur. And when they shed their fur, which would be around this time, they're very vulnerable to insects. And insects, they enjoy warmth. So they would be bugged out. So that would mean that they would migrate further up. And we, reindeer herders, are unable but also unwilling to herd our reindeers during the warm periods of the day. Because inversely with the seals that Sascha mentioned, they're more active during the day because of the light. But reindeers are less active during the day because of the temperature.
I wonder if you can tell us a little bit, we've heard from ICC, really fantastic work. Is there similar the Sami people across the nations?
Yes, so we have an NGO, the Sami Council, which is one of the 8 permanent participants of the Arctic Council. And they have a similar role as ICC, where they advocate and protect our rights, our human rights, our culture, our language, and promote and have discussions about, okay, but how can we solve this and make it an okay solution or okay policy for Sami people, traditional fishers, reindeer herders.
And I wonder if there is also a more political branch of Sami.
Oh, yes. So we have 3 Sami parliaments in Finland, Norway, Sweden, where they are elected officials that support, not support, but thank you, represent us politically. And this, we have left-leaning parties, right-leaning parties, and in Norway, we even have national parties who are interested in taking part of Sami parliament. On the Russian side, no parliament, from what I know. But correct me if I'm wrong.
Can you tell us, you've mentioned these different examples of how reindeer herding has been affected by climate change. What has the interaction with the research community been for a lot of Sami people?
Okay, so there is a saying, and I personally think it's very funny, but that's also because I have indigenous sense of humor. So the story or the joke goes something along the lines of, the traditional Sami family consists of mother, father, around 3 siblings, and their researcher. And more often than not, it's a social anthropologist who stays with the family for 6 months, sometimes more, but the average is half a year, where they live with the family, study the family, their culture, what makes them tick, and then they finish their master thesis, and then they are never seen again. Sometimes they might keep in contact, but there's so many researchers that we have to keep track of, 2 researchers a year. So the list becomes very long.
Is there any exchange of the knowledge between Sami peoples and the researchers, or is it kind of one way?
So in the family example, I do believe there is some sort of exchange in that you have someone else to talk to and not just your own family. But otherwise, the cultural aspect, it's very one-sided and very extractive, where the family shows the researcher their way of life, what they do, why they do it, and the researcher takes notes. And then, I haven't heard or read any of the theses that have been written about my family. So that should sum it up pretty well.
Are there any resources that have been produced by Sami communities to try to make research practices a little bit better?
So I have a favorite university, and it's not UIT. It's actually Allaskola, which is the Sami University of Applied Sciences, which is not the only one, but it is the only Sami-led, built Sami institute, where our traditional knowledge, our culture, our history is the foundation. And the research being done there is being done by Sami people, for Sami people, and in collaboration with Sami people.
I wonder if you can share with us, you mentioned your experience with your professors regarding the reindeer types, but do we see that in these more Western universities that people are open to be challenged or to rethink the way they approach certain subjects like biology?
So I don't know if you know this, but UIT is the only non-Sami organization that owns reindeers, because in Norway you have to be Sami or get special permission from the king to own and work with reindeers. And UIT has been granted that right. And I was talking to one of my professors. My background in reindeer herding came up, where, oh yeah, you should talk to this faculty. They have reindeers. Maybe you could do a weekend shift or whatever. And I thought this was an interesting opportunity, because I am a reindeer nerder. I love reindeers. But they're a bit sad over at the UIT reindeers. And I thought I could cheer them up a bit. And then I explored and asked around about this opportunity. And then I was met with, what do you know about reindeers? So I would say the collaboration as of now is shaky. And it's very much still a Western approach. And how can we use academic methodology and approaches to research indigenous topics?
We've heard from Axel that the hunters and fishermen in Greenland, it's their whole life experience, it's their family's life experience. It takes a long while to acquire all of this, and there's a lot of intergenerational teaching.
Yes.
So, how would you say your experience learning about reindeer husbandry has been? How long does it take to become an expert reindeer herder?
So it really much depends on how interested and what your background is. I'm very lucky and privileged to have been born into a reindeer herding family. And I'm also very lucky that I have that interest, because many Sami people from reindeer herding backgrounds don't necessarily have the interest in pursuing that as a career. Because we sometimes talk about and if you ask me, I think 10 years, 15 years, then you can call yourself a master. Then you've earned your PhD in it. My uncle has been doing it his entire life, so he has maybe 5 PhDs. Quick math, that's like 55 years. But it also depends on what opportunities you get. Because comparing my experiences and the time that I've put into reindeer herding and the opportunities that I've had and that I've taken, I have, in the words of Liam Neeson in Taken, I have a special set of skills. And just a couple of years after I started becoming active, I was not just the baby cousin. I was suddenly like next in line for the Sida, or like the taking over, becoming the leader, where my cousins would actively come and ask, what do you think is going to happen? Where should we herd the reindeers? What should our pastures look like? Because we believe in knowledge is free, but all knowledge isn't for everyone. So I've been taught some things by my uncle because he believes that I can hold it better, or I'm worthy of that knowledge. And my cousins aren't less capable, but he deems them not worthy, I guess.
Here I would ask you about coming and ask you shared with some of that knowledge, right? I think we could approach the topic with, knowledge is free and for everyone.
Yes.
But here, I think we need to hear your take on the protection of Indigenous knowledge and, people who hold that, the knowledge holder.
So my thought is that if you were to come and do a research project in my area, I would be open to telling you most things, but then there are closed practices. And these closed practices are off limits. to outsiders. And I think we have to trust our knowledge holders to share the knowledge that they're comfortable sharing, and they feel is gonna be of use. Because reindeer herding isn't just work, a career, it's not just a research topic, but there's also a spiritual aspect to it. I've had experiences when I've been out herding that I cannot put into words to explain it correctly, because it was more than just, oh, I was observing something that happened. And I have many theories on what happened, but so far they have not been proven or disproved. And yeah.
Kind of touching a little bit on what Axel talked about. Of course, we see climate as being one of those threats to different livelihoods. Do you see any other ones?
Yes. So there's been research done in the Finnmark tundra where we are noticing a shrubification. And for those who don't know what that is, it means there's a lot of bushes coming up, or the low or short growth are becoming taller. So instead of them being at your ankles, they're up to your knees. And this has an isolating effect where they trap air, warm air. That's one aspect that we're noting. You have and in the same way as Axel was in earlier, you have the traditional livelihood and then you have the commercial one. I'm taught, and I love the traditional reindeer husbandry, but there's a government reindeer husbandry where the focus is not on living, surviving. It's about production, creating capital, creating value. And in reindeer herding's part, then it's meat production. So we are incentivized to feed pellets or hay to our reindeers, and that would mean that we're importing dried hay to tundra, and then we're introducing ourselves foreign flora, which can have devastating effects. It's not being researched, but you can imagine yourselves importing tons of hay, what that can do to the local ecosystem. And this is just in one winter. So imagine the effects of multiple winters. Not to say also what the effect has on the internal, like how the reindeers are affected by this. Because they have very sensitive, not stomachs, but intestines. Thank you.
I guess before we open it up, I'll just ask you, how do you think that young researchers should kind of approach working with Sami community more broadly?
I think you should not hesitate to approach people, but also understand that with the traditional Sami family and how it looks like with that one random researcher every 6 months, that some people might be aversive and not open, but that it's also, remember, you don't need to ask, oh, what are the implications of this on the first coffee? Maybe do that on the third coffee date you have with a young Sami person. Get to know them and build community, build relations. Especially since Sami culture or community is also a very collective culture. We even have it in our language. We don't have just singular and plural. We also have dualis, where we're like, oh, let's go. Or those two went. So be humble, be open, be nice, bring coffee.
Thank you. And then for this, and you can
Okay.
introduce whoever.
Yes, I saw that hand first, and then.
But I have a following them. So how happens after working with the if you haven't mentioned them, I think it's very important because in the debate here, husbandry is a circumpolar collaboration beyond the sun.
Yes.
And before the Ukrainian war, there was very strong collaboration between Sami and the Earth Russia. And so I think that's very important to mention. One thing that I found extremely interesting about Sami, though, that you have so many languages.
Yes.
I believe you have what, 11 or at least 9?
So we had 9 that I know of, but there are 3 that are. Tel Sami is extinct. 2 more are on the way, but we are stubborn people. So the revitalization processes of the languages are effective.
I found it very interesting to go to the Sami parliament. They have translation booths, so everybody speaks in their own Sami dialect, and I find that really fascinating. You managed to maintain the language. And then there's one more thing that I wanted to mention. That's the Elat project, the Elat cookbook.
Oh yeah, Ello, yeah. My aunt was part of that project.
Maybe you can tell them a little bit about that. I think that's also an extremely good way to reach out to the Western world with the culture of the reindeer herders and the Samis.
Yes. So very shortly about the Ello project. It resulted in a cookbook in how different reindeer herding communities, what they make for traditional foods, and how they eat reindeers. Some reindeer cultures, they slaughter the animal, dip the meat, and then drink the blood. In Sami culture, for example, we dry, smoke, boil reindeer, but we also love blood pancakes. It sounds maybe a bit iffy, but blood food is really amazing. And it was a way to show, I think, personally, for young indigenous people, what amazing food networks that we have, what we can eat. It was mentioned earlier and how, the younger generation, they prefer chicken or more Western food. And that is a form of colonization. What is food? What is edible? An example would be, Japanese food is just ramen and sushi. But that's not true. Japanese food culture is very diverse, very rich, and we have to look beyond just what's readily available. And also, speaking on ICR and reindeer herding, my grandmother's brother, I would call him grandfather, but that might be confusing. He actually went to Greenland to teach reindeer herding. And I mentioned that to Axel. I think that's pretty funny. So now I'm coming back 50, 70 years later. Yeah. Which one? Oh, okay. So there's a land-based conflict where the Norwegian government unlawfully has built a windmill park, and it's horrible. I urge you to read up on that personally, because there's so much to be said about that. I do not have the energy to talk about that right now, but it's young Sami activists were taken into court, Norwegian court, because it offended human rights. Yeah, and I personally am losing faith in Norway as a government of law. Laws don't apply to everyone equally. And I was really touched when I heard that hunters and fishers in Greenland are also feeling that they have to break the law in order to practice not their rights, but human rights or cultural rights. It's their human rights. And I also saw the quiz on the wall behind you. An addition to that is when you're talking to informants or Indigenous people, remember that we are not just stakeholders, we're rights holders. We have rights to our lands, to our waters. We have the human right to practice our culture. And it might be sometimes, oh, but why are you doing that way? But that's the way that we do it. And that's the way we connect, not to just ourselves and our family, but our community at large and also our history. Yeah. Thank you for a question.
So thank you. I was wondering about this. You mentioned this 6th family member interning with families for 6 months at a time, and I wonder, don't the researchers read each other's reports so they don't have to all go and get the information from the source? Do you know about that?
Again, I don't know. They just disappear. They're kind of like Houdini.
Yeah.
Where are they?
And they don't write any articles about this.
I've not read any reports, and I've not been able to find any reports. So that's, and it's interesting how they're able to do that. But maybe that's a social anthropology question. We should ask them.
Well, the anthropologists that I know write articles about what they see. I think they read each other's work well, so maybe that's an idea.
Exactly. I will tell the next intern. Thank you. More questions? Yes?
And you mentioned that there's also sea farmers, but they're less common as a function of colonial practices. Could you say that?
So maybe I misspoke, but they're not less common. They're everywhere. But the policies hit them harder than my sort of reindeer herding Sami community. It's very easy to say that I am a Sami person because I work with reindeers, and it's very different from like Norwegian culture. But if you're Sea Sami, a lot of the cultural practices look the same from an outsider's perspective. Norwegian people fish. Norwegian people hunt. But do they herd reindeers? No. And they're everywhere. If you ask me, I know where to look. But they might not openly admit being Sea Sami. A very bad comparison would be kind of like coming out of the Sami closet. And they're very much still in the closet for understandable reasons, because there's also been stories told from Sea Sami communities where they, even though they are proud Sea Samis, they're met with, but you're not a real Sami though. Where's your reindeers? And these are perpetuated by reindeer herding Samis. Not a lot, but I've heard stories. But mostly from Norwegians and well-meaning foreign people, because being a Sami has been written down as being a reindeer herding people. So as soon as you deviate from that, how can you then belong to this group that's written in a book? And that's something also that you should remember, that just because it's written in a book doesn't mean that it's the final story. A lot of our practices and stories are transferred orally. And one story might look one way or be told in one way in one area, but in the next fjord is completely different. Or some. So yes, one question. And no, you too. So sorry.
Very interesting to emphasize that the border, the Norwegian border, is defined by the nomadic standing in the north. Just traditional Sami life has been following the reindeer in far into several hundred kilometers in the winter, and following the reindeer out to the coastline in the summer. But the Norwegian Germanic population have only been following and living along the coast. So the Norwegian map is the entire northern coast, thin line along the coast. But when they decided these borders 200 years ago, back in the capital, they knew nothing about what was going on, but I heard about nomads. That's why back in Copenhagen and Scotland, they had the border far into the country. So that's because of the Sami lifestyle that Finnmark and Finnmark County living far into the country, while the rest of the Northern Norway is the thin line around the country.
And I think on the thinnest part is like 20 kilometers to the Swedish border. Suddenly, if you get lost, suddenly you're in Sweden. Yes, you had a question, then you have a question or a comment, and then I think people want lunch. I can stand here all day, but y'all gotta eat.
There about other traditional things.
Ooh, where do I start?
Maybe one or two examples.
Fish soup. That's no, not fish soup. I mean, sorry, eyeball soup. So a friend of my aunt, she will take the head and make a soup out of that, and then you have some eyeballs floating around. And it sounds a bit iffy, like ooh, but it's very good. I promise you. You have to try it if you get the opportunity. Another one, which is not the reindeer herding part, but is more on the sesame part, is that you can take the stomach of a cod and then you fill it with roe, flour, salt, pepper, some onion, and then you cook it. And then you make it like a roll, and then you cut thin slices of it. Very delicious, very good. We also eat seal sometimes, but it's not in my family, so I'm not going to speak too much. Yes, if you get the chance to read the Ärlåkeri book, please do so. It's a very interesting book.
You actually got an international award.
Yes.
I just wanted to, because you haven't mentioned the outreach, but because I believe the Greater Center is doing a fantastic outreach. They have developed something that's called the nomadic kitchen. So it's a lavabo plus a kitchen unit that can be transported around. They've been even taking it down to Rome twice to the United Nations Food Center. And so they have the lavabo dialogue in the lavabo itself, and then the kitchen is used to use different reindeer meat. It's a really fantastic way to bring the knowledge and bring the I'd say the understanding and of the importance of reindeer herding.
And not only that, it's called Washu, probably the coolest kitchen in the world. Yeah, I agree with it. It's a really good project. They've also hosted, my French isn't really good, but like Boucour d'Or. Anyways, these are like super good French chefs, and we've had them in that kitchen cooking food alongside traditional chefs. Yeah. Yeah, I've been there too. So I've done a lot of things, but yeah, if you want to talk reindeers, food, Hit me up, man. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I think we'll just kind of cut to lunch and then we'll come back here and then we'll explain a little bit more about what the afternoon is going to look like. But thank you so much to all our presenters. I think we should give them another round of applause. For 1 hour, so we'll be back at 1.
Maybe just a small announcement, you can leave all of our stuff inside this room, but it'd be great if you could remove it from the table, because after the lunch we're going to the work setting, so move the tables a bit.
Put it on the chair.
So put it on the chair ideally, but you can leave your things.
Så Sascha, jeg vil bare si, det var skikkelig bra presentasjon, veldig kult. Og jeg skal holde utkikk på dine